Hello, welcome to today's edition of the Academy. I know it's been a few weeks, but we're back. And we're going to pick up where we left off. Now, a couple episodes ago, we talked about creating a fire plan. And last time we talked about avoiding overkill. Now, all of this is coming from the U.S. military manual on basically platoon and squad small unit tactics. Okay, so today we're going to focus on the section that's basically titled Employ the best weapon for the target. Okay, I'm going to read a couple sentences. There's three different sections to this. It's pretty, I wouldn't say it's a long section, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. But out of each segment, I'm going to just read the highlight, and then we'll go back and discuss each point. Okay. So, section 2-15 is where we're going to start. It says, using the appropriate weapon against the enemy target increases the probability of its rapid destruction or suppression. Next section is, weapons and munitions are designed with specifications that enable their effects to be forecasted with some degree of accuracy before being fired. And finally, infantry platoon and squad leaders must ensure that they focus the fires of their weapon systems on targets their weapon systems are designed to engage. Alright, so let's just kind of break those down, because they all really do apply well to the tabletop. Now, in all the systems we have, at least all the game systems I've ever played, you've always been able to tell which units or which weapons are best against which type of targets. Now, the better players really do pay attention to this. If you don't, you're really wasting your opportunities. A quick example, in real life, is you're not going to use your automatic rifle against an armored personnel carrier. You're going to use some sort of light anti-tank weapon, infantry portable. That's designed to handle those particular situations. Once you take out the vehicle, then the guys embarked inside will come out, and now you will unload with your automatic weapons. Those are designed to go after soft targets, unarmed vehicles, or soldiers, right? So that's just a basic idea. So now, if you go back to your fire plan, you think about you're trying to piece together what your options are as the battle could develop. So you're going to position your different weapon systems, whether it's the rifleman, whether it's the anti-tank weapon, whatever it is you got, your anti-aircraft weapon, you name it. You're going to position them within the unit on the battlefield in such a way that it is in position to take advantage of lines of fire, cover as appropriate, and give you the maximum possible effectiveness out of those different pieces of the unit. Okay, you don't want to put the whole unit behind cover where they can't see anything until the last minute when the enemy's right on their doorstep. You want to put the long-range weapons in a position where they've got cover, but they've got that long field of fire. You want the shorter shorter range weapons to be in a position where they can either not be engaged from at the beginning, but are in a position to quickly take up position when the opponent reaches their maximum firing range. That way, you've got some flexibility, yet you're keeping them safe, right? So that's where you weave this into your fire plan, so that you're kind of pre-thinking where is the enemy going to send which of his units. If you can tell by the battlefield's layout, due to different obstacles or whatever, that the enemy is going to be sending his troops through a certain open section that's a little easier to traverse, that's where you want to focus your weapon systems that are designed to go after the infantry. If there's a spot where he's likely to bring his armor, you make sure that area is in a position, you're in a position to engage that with your anti-armor equipment, right? So that's what you're trying to weave that into the plan by preparing the positions. Now the next point that was in there actually applies right to the our games very well, because in the military there's manuals for all their weapon systems, and they've got ballistic charts and weapons performance charts, and you will know at any given range, in any given weather conditions potentially, how effective your weapon system is going to be against a particular target. Well, our codexes and our army books and everything that tells us what our weapons can do, how strong are they? What's the range? What's the armor piercing value, if that's even part of it? All of that you can use to, I'll use the term again, apply math hammer to figure out what are the odds of that weapon system performing well against a particular opponent, right? So, take advantage of studying your Army list's weapon systems. Know what they can do, know what they're best capable of doing, what are the odds of doing certain things. For example, if you have a one-shot weapon that has a certain chance to hit, you know the likelihood of actually getting a securing hit. If you know its strength versus the armor's or the opponent's armor or toughness or whatever it is that you compare, you'll know the likelihood of actually scoring some damage. And then once you do, you know the odds of actually dealing out damage. In some cases, that's a chance of actually taking out the vehicles or soldier. In other cases, it's just applying wounds and wearing them down. But you'll be able to mathematically figure out what is the likelihood. That is how you help determine how many of a particular weapon system you need to address a particular threat. All right, now I'm going to read a couple sub-bullets, if you will, of this one section, because I think these apply directly to tabletop, and we all need to consider these as we play through our games. So, platoon and squad infantry leaders must have an intimate understanding of their organic and supporting weapons and munitions to include the following. Number one, weapons characteristics, range, and optimal use. That's what we usually think of, right? Munitions characteristics, lethality, and optimal use, which is basically a situation, not just a weapon, but what if it has different options for ammunition? Maybe it has anti-personnel versus anti-tank. Maybe it has poison versus, armor piercing, or you name it. There's any number of. You need to understand for that weapon system, what do those different munitions offer you? And then finally, procedures to request, control, and adjust fires from other agencies. It's a fancy way of saying calling in supporting fire. Now, let's go back a couple definitions. Organic fire is what's part of the unit. Supporting fire comes from around. Now, a lot of game systems have some sort of orbital strike, forward observer to bring and call in artillery, call in airstrikes, stuff like that. Those are supporting fires. Again, understanding how those weapon systems work within the rules of the game will help you deal the damage that's most effective against your opponent. Again, weaving into that fire plan. So, if I'm going to use bolt action as an example because it has several of these elements in one weapon system. I'm going to use the airstrike as an example. There's a 1 in 6 chance if the airstrike comes in, basically there's a 1 in 6 chance that it's going to attack your own stuff, misidentification. There's a 1/3 chance it's going to be delayed. And there's a 50% chance it's going to come in as desired. Okay, right there you know the likelihood of it engaging your threat when you want it to. Now the way it works is you will randomly determine which type of aircraft comes in, what strength of attack is, but the target unit and there's an area around where the aircraft comes in, 18 inches away. Both of those areas are going to be affected by either just what they call pins, which is kind of a morale, keep your heads down kind of a thing, or actual destructive lethal munitions doing hits that could damage or kill vehicles, right? Or infantry. Both knowing that you have a target unit and a radius around 6 inches around it, and a origination point and a radius of 6 inches around there, you have to understand within the context of when you're calling in the strike, what your best position is to affect the most enemy units possible that can be affected by that particular type of aircraft or that type of airstrike, right? So it's not part of your normal infantry squad. It's not the thing you use every turn, every couple times every turn. It's the thing you use once a game, but when it happens, there's a way to misuse it and there's a way to optimally use it. So you want to really understand those supporting fires and imagine and rehearse what effectiveness you can get if you do it certain ways, target different units and what have you, okay? So that's what we're looking at with that. Okay, the last point that was in the article or the manual about this particular subject deals with, again, utilizing these weapon systems against the target they're designed to engage. Now, part of that, a big part of that is your threat range, the range at which your weapon system can reach. Because the whole point of putting fire on an enemy isn't necessarily to destroy the enemy unit, it's to disrupt them. When you're staring down the barrel of an anti-tank weapon, whether it's a las cannon or an 88mm gun, you are going to be affected by that threat mentally. Okay, you're going to want to protect your unit. You're going to want to engage that unit with something else. You're going to focus your fire or whatever. But you're going to probably abandon your initial plan. So that is where this disruption concept comes into play. You want to understand the maximum range of your weapons and try to get in a position where you can utilize that maximum range or the most range possible so that you can engage that target for the longest possible time before it gets close enough to really hurt you. If it's a ranged unit, range may affect how effective it is as it approaches. So the sooner you can engage it, the more likely you can disrupt or damage it. You'll want to stack your weapon systems so that the closer the opponent gets, the more shots are coming at him, the more danger he's in. What you don't want to do is position all of your units in such a way that they all have the same reach on the board. So, in other words, let's say you're going to work down from long table edge to long table edge. You got 48 inches of cover. If you have 36-inch weapons and 24-inch weapons and 18-inch weapons, what you don't want to do is put your 36-inch range weapons in the back row, your 24-inch weapons 12 inches ahead of that, and your 18s 6 inches in front of that, because what that means is that your opponent won't be harmed until they've moved past their 12-inch mark. So they can stay, if they have a 48-inch weapon range, they can stay back. In fact, with a 36-inch range, they can harry your initial front line if they position properly, and you're not able to deliver any response. But now, what you're probably thinking when you do that is, well, when they are in range, I can deliver overwhelming response with all my weapons. But that's not effective because you're not able to engage the opponent early. You're not be able to engage him continually as he moves about the battlefield. You're going to basically wait until he reaches a point and then unleash everything, giving him a lot of freedom of movement, a lot of options, a lot of chance to adjust his plan in response to what he sees. So try to interleave your units such that your long-range units are able to hit them from almost the beginning of the game, if not the beginning of the game. And then as they move up, now your other weapons, they start coming to range, keeping those units as far forward as you can to apply that damage. Remember, mobility is important. So once they move in range, you engage, you shoot, then the next turn, as they move up, you can retreat a little bit, fall back, maintain the distance so it's harder for them to reach you, and still pour fire on them. They're still in their effective range, and those systems then you'll constantly be putting this fire down on them. So range matters, and then again, using the right system for the target. Do not shoot your rifles at a tank. I know in the new edition of 40K, the humble las cannon can actually do damage to a tank, but it's not the most efficient way to do that. It's best if you use your anti-tank weapons first on it and save your anti-infantry weapons to go after the infantry. Only in a desperate situation would you deviate from that. So those are the concepts that we're dealing with here in this section of the manual. So I hope you kind of see some of the aspects. I know I've mentioned some of these concepts in previous videos, whether it's part of Sun Tzu or whether it was prior to that, but it bears repeating because it is so important. It's even in military manuals. So I would recommend, if possible, always keep an eye out for some sort of military manual, some sort of any type of documentation where the military is teaching its soldiers how to fight, because you can glean a lot from that, as we are from this particular manual. So join us again next week as we continue our walk through this particular manual. We pick up on our next topic. All right, thanks a lot for sticking with me. Sorry it took so long to get this next edition out, but I'm really glad to be back. So thank you very much. Share, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.